Hello and welcome back to CEO.CA. Today we are talking all things copper and gold in Portugal. I'm excited to be joined by Karim Rayani, CEO and Executive Chair of Ibero Mining. They trade on the Venture Exchange under the ticker IMC. Karim, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, James. Great to be here.
So let's kick things off with a quick elevator pitch. Can you give us the key facts for Ibero Mining?
So Ibero Mining is a copper gold focused issuer trading under the symbol IMC on the TSX Venture Exchange. We hold a number of advanced stage copper and gold assets. We're currently bringing back a historic resource of 10 to 15 million tons of copper to our current resource calculation with the objective of putting it into production.
Fantastic. And before we get into some of those details, can you tell us maybe you had a recent name change from EuroPacific. Walk us through that change, and does this represent a new chapter in the company's life?
I think it does. I mean, names, some people say it's not important. It was very confusing to me. The company was called EuroPacific, but our assets are all in Portugal, along the Pirate Belt, which is one of the most mineral-rich, massive sulfide areas in the world. It's 250 kilometers long by 50 kilometers wide, and this is really where our focus is. This project has essentially been sitting dormant. It was mined historically, but based on modern mining methods, we're able to really go back in there. If you were walking on this ground, you would not really realize that you're sitting on a potential for a multi-billion-dollar copper project.
Fantastic. And can you walk us through maybe this dual approach here of bringing back the past producing mines, but also doing some additional exploration on these highly prospective targets? What's guided this strategy, and what are some of the next steps?
Okay, so based on the historic findings, there's roughly between 7 and 10 million tons of copper, grading between 1.5 and 2.5% copper. We've done one successful program of drilling. Every hole was essentially mineralized. There's a supergene blanket which covers the oxides and the sulfides. When you put that together, you essentially have 15 to 20 million tons at surface. We've extended an additional kilometer down of strike, and we did an exploratory hole to the north, which gave us an additional kilometer. So when you add that all up, you have 3 kilometers of strike, grading. Our first hole was 7.49% copper over 22 meters, with another intercept on that hole of over 5%. So this is a very rich system. It's probably one of the richest copper systems along this belt. And when you add this all up together, because it's open to depth, we can probably stretch between 25 and 50 million tons at surface. Initially, our geological team, thought it would be a good, kind of cash flow property, but they didn't really see it being as big as it's kind of turning out to be. Just to kind of put this into comparison, 50 million tons at 2% copper works out to about 1 million tons of pure, copper concentrate, with a street value of approximately $8 billion. Even if we use 1%, it is a multi-billion-dollar asset. And that's really what got me looking at this is, it's a breccia quartz type system. The rock is very porous, it crumbles. It's mainly copper. There's no other credits in this system that we've seen. So using a heap leaching system or process, we can set up a shop here, and essentially produce it ourselves on site. It may be too small right now for some of the majors to take notice, but I think once we come to the market with 50 million tons, down to 100, 200 meters, I think a lot of people are going to see that this is actually something very significant.
Absolutely. And with this being a past producing site, is there any infrastructure in place from those previous operations, or more broadly, what is the infrastructure like in the region for mining?
Portugal is one of the best. This is probably one of the best projects I've ever worked on. I mean, it's 3 hours away from my home. It's 10 minutes away from the town of Avoria, which is 180 kilometers east of Lisbon, in a town called Alentejo, which is also known for its wine. Infrastructure's in place, highways there. There's a port facility. There's rail. I'm involved in a number of other copper assets around the world, and tires popping, cold weather, drilling down to 1,000 meters. This is essentially could become one of the most profitable copper projects along this region, just because of the type of porous rock that it is.
Excellent. And can you tell us a bit more about your drilling plans at the project?
We are waiting on our last hole, which undercut our first hole where we hit 7.49% copper, including 22.8 meters of 2.76% copper, including a 9-meter interval of 7.49 on that hole. So we went directly underneath that hole, and that's basically our deepest hole that we've done to 350 meters. Based on all the findings, every hole mineralized, this will essentially tell us as to how deep this system goes. Visually, the core looks very good. I would be shocked if it didn't run at least 1% or 2%. And then we can kind of start putting the modeling together for resource calculation. We still need to do more infill drilling. Our objective is not to stop here. We're planning our second phase of drilling right now, and we plan to start before the end of the year.
And in terms of looking ahead and defining a resource here, would that come after this second drill campaign, or is that going to be a little further down the line?
We're still doing the modeling. We have a tentative non-43101. Obviously, when we put these, when we plot the holes into the software, it essentially tells us. And again, I'm not a geologist, so I don't want to get too technical here. But basically, we put the numbers into the software, and it tells us approximately, what we have at a certain depth, a certain intercept. So we have a good idea that we have 10 to 15 million tons. We may have to do some more infill drilling, but obviously our goal is to get to 50 million tons down to 150 meters. And that is going to be the second phase of the program. But we're hoping to announce something in the next couple of weeks on a general outline as to what we have based on our drilling up to date.
Excellent. And in terms of the costs of these operations, both your drilling operations and I guess looking ahead to any potential mine building scenario, walk us through what the costs are like operating there.
Well, drilling, I would say, if you compare this to Canada, or you compare it to Chile, or compare it to other areas in the world, Portugal is probably the most cost effective because it's at surface, because we don't have an expensive camp to set up. Our costs are probably about 30 to 40% cheaper, and to process this, it'll probably be as well, between 30 and 50%, less of where it would be elsewhere. So, we operate on a very small burn rate. We were also able to renegotiate some of our commitments on our gold assets quite substantially, probably by about 50, 60%, and rear loaded based on success. So we're in a pretty good shape right now.
Excellent. And Kareem, I guess some of our viewers may also know you as running Falcon Gold. You've got a lot of experience in the mining industry. Can you walk us through maybe what was your journey in mining and why did you join Ibero?
Well, I probably got criticized for this. I'm a market guy. I like taking risks. When it comes to something I like. I do a lot of trading. Just like my shareholders. Me as an investor, I'm the largest shareholder of Ibero Mining. If you look at my insiders, I bought millions of shares out of the market, and I still continue to buy. So it's not like I'm getting a free ride. I've been purchasing shares up to 6 cents, and the stock is trading at a discount from where I continue to support it. That's because I see really the long-term objective as to how big this can be. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess just to wrap up, when we're looking ahead through the end of the year and into 2025, what are some milestones? What are some news? What are some updates that investors can expect?
Well, I think we're going to be running on at least 2 or 3 projects. I'm really focused on getting Miguel Vasquez kind of up and running, just mainly burn rate, to his dilution. We're sitting with 70 million shares out, of which I'm probably at 10% now. I would rather try and get the share price up a little bit more before we focus on the gold, but we do have some work commitments. So we will be doing work on both the gold and on the copper project, essentially starting before the end of the year. From a point of news flow, 2 projects at least, further delineation of the resource estimate, maybe some further costs as to what that's going to be like. And I think that's really going to get the market excited. I mean, for us to have potentially $8 billion of copper value sitting at 200 meters, and our market cap is less than 4, I would anticipate that the majors are going to start taking a very close look at what we're doing. We had some small interest on some things, but I'm not even taking those meetings because I'm not really prepared to give away the farm at this stage.
Well, Kareem, sounds like there are some significant milestones in the near future for Ibero. Looking forward to more updates throughout the year. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, James.